Greetings and gratitude to our life forms and life workers who have found this interview with Violet Ann from Violet Ann Tarot. She's going to tell us a paranormal experience she had. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Okay, so would you like to start?
So the first one I wanted to talk about was one that is kind of actually quite tame. Most people, when they think of ghost stories, they think of like a spooky house with some creepy music or, darkness, all that kind of stuff. So this happened in the middle of the day. Like it was a sunny day. Like it was during the spring, summertime. What happened was there was only three people in the house. There was me, my mom, and my nan. And my nan is very old. She couldn't move very fast. And the way that my mom's kitchen was is there's a big hatch. If you've ever seen like the the hatches that were popular in the 80s, that kind of thing, where they have a hatch through the kitchen into the living room. Well, they had one of those. So me and my mom went into the kitchen to make a cup of tea. And it was the middle of summer, middle of the daytime. I was standing at one end of the kitchen, looking straight down towards the door. My mum was standing on the other side of the kitchen, looking straight at me, so back towards the door. Now she could see into the hatch, through the hatch into the living room, where my nan was sitting perfectly in front of the hatch, so she could see her at all times. We're just standing there, we're just talking. I was talking about what I was doing at university, where I was going to go, that kind of thing, because it was like the summertime break. And I saw the door open behind her, and I saw an old lady, the old lady's hand reach around the door, push it open, and this was a fully fledged old lady's hand. Saw it
Wow.
open. I heard the lady go, "Oh," sort of thing, like, "Oh, somebody's in here," kind of thing. And I just casually joked to my mom saying, "Oh, Nan's just opened the door, but I think she's got what she wanted," and left again. And my mom said, "She hasn't moved." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I saw her open the door. I saw a hand come around it and open the door. I said, "No, she'd been sitting there the whole time." No, she was very old at this point. She was in her 80s. It took her 5 minutes to get up on the sofa. She wouldn't be able to rush back and forth like that. And she could see her the whole time anyway. She hadn't moved. But somebody had opened that door and I saw somebody's hand around it. Now, we had like lots of occurrences like this, kind of like somebody coming in the kitchen. And we always used to call her the old lady because she'd come in the kitchen and very stereotypically, for a British person, she'd come and make us have a cup of tea.
Like turn on the fire and everything?
We had a kettle, so you press the button sort of thing and the kettle boil.
Oh, okay.
But no, you'd hear the cupboards being opened and messed with and stuff when there was nobody else in the house. You'd hear somebody
Oh, wow.
in there. It was quite a common occurrence in
Did she take sugar?
um I don't know because she never actually physically made herself a cup,
Oh,
as far as we know of. But
yeah.
um she used to hear like the things rattling and stuff and the kettle being boiled out of nowhere. Which if it was just a kettle, you'd think maybe it was a error, but like something wrong with the kettle. But yeah. Yeah, that was like fully, I could fully see an old lady's hand. An old lady opened the door, sort of thing. I couldn't see the face because they didn't fully come in the room, but they were quite
Was there
sharp.
any temperature change or anything like any cold chills or feelings of like hot pressure in the room when that happened or when you
No,
think about it?
it just felt like a normal summer's day. Like it was dark at the end of the house because that end of the house was away from the windows, so it didn't get much light. So that area was quite dark. It didn't tend to get much light. Where we were, it was quite bright, sort of thing. But
Oh, okay.
these are these are old proper wooden doors. They don't just open.
Yeah.
And
No, it takes force to open it.
yeah, and it wasn't dark enough for you to just see a shadow and think it's a hand or anything like that. This was like fully 100%. I could see their hand, like their wrinkles and stuff. That's why I could know it was an old lady.
Did you see like the varicose veins and stuff like that?
Yeah, like old, really old and wrinkly, and the rain's kind of like lifting up, that kind of thing.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Violet Ann.
But yeah, I mean, like we used to have her pop by a lot. We used to have like um that as a kind of regular occurrence, and there was lots of others used to pop by the house, so we got kind of used to it after a bit.
Uh-huh.
But
She was a flatmate over time.
yeah, yeah, she was just somebody that lived in the house basically. Um, but yeah, I mean, the other weird one that I wanted to say about is one thing I never quite understood what it was. Um, so I was in high school at the time, and I used to walk home from school, and where I lived was basically what they call allotments, which is like pieces of land that they rent out to people so they can grow fruit and veg on it, something. And they're in the middle of the city, basically. And there's like an alleyway that would go behind the back of the row of houses around these allotments and then back out the other side, and it would exit near my house. So it was easier to walk through this alleyway, cut through, than it was to go all the way up the top of the hill, all the way around the houses and everything like that. So I used to use it on a daily basis to go into and from school. And I was just walking down this alleyway. I'd popped in this alleyway next to one of the houses, and there was this giant ball of like energy, like blue, bright energy, kind of misty and cloudy, but
Did
the
it
rest,
cast a shadow?
no, it was just floating there, like a few inches off the ground. But the rest of there wasn't any other mist around. It was just like a little bit almost like egg shaped, but like rounded egg shaped.
Like an oval.
Yeah, like overly kind of shaped, very rounded. And it was blue and light, and it just felt good. Basically, it felt like light, and it was quite bright, but it wasn't giving off any light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like incandescent
Yeah,
within itself, but not translucent. So the light wasn't being moved. It was just bright within itself.
yeah.
Kind
So it was,
kind of like it was similar to an anglerfish, like an animal that produces bioluminescence.
yeah. So it wasn't illuminating the surroundings. It was just itself that was illuminated. So this was like hovering on the path where I was meant to walk, and the way the paths were, you couldn't walk around it. It was about the same a bit bigger than a person, around about the same size as a person, a little bit bigger, but not by much. And it was just there. Um, there wasn't like it wasn't touching anything. It was just hovering there. So I was like, this is weird. And I'd walked down that road like hundreds and hundreds of times because I used to use it every day. It's like, that's really weird. So I went out back out the alleyway, walked down the street, and then got to the next entrance because there was these entrances dotted along the road, and got behind it, and it was just floating there. And I was like, that's weird. I'll have a look from the other side.
So wait, so you went, how long did it take you to reorient? Like, how long did it take you to go around?
Probably about 3 or 4 minutes because he had to go like out, back up, down, and then back in, sort of thing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
And so the colors and the shapes and everything were just the same when you got back there,
Yeah, it was just floating there.
as
And I
if
was
you were
like,
there the whole time.
yeah, it was just floating there. And like I could see the others, I couldn't see through it, but I could see like around it because it didn't encompass the whole of the area. But it was enough so you couldn't walk past it because there's like, you know, bits of like stinging nettles and stuff like that. I was like, this is really weird. I don't know what it is. But I didn't want to get too close to it, if you know what I mean. Like I was a bit too nervous to get too close. And I was like, this is weird, this is weird. And I just looked at it for a bit and just watched it for a bit, but it just didn't go away. It just hovered there. And I was like, this is weird. So I went back to my house and I told my boyfriend at the time, who was also pagan, he was into all this kind of stuff. And he was like, that's really weird. We should check if it comes back again. So I had another day, nothing happened because I had to walk back and through there. Nothing seemed to happen. I'd looked at where it was, like when it wasn't there, if there was like somebody had a hanging light or something like that, or something else. There was nothing. Like it was hanging midair. There was nothing connected to it. It wasn't there anymore. I was like, this is weird. So carried on. About 3 or 4 days later, he came over to my house, and he said, let's go and have a look and see if it's there. So we came out again. I said, well, it might not be there. You know, last time I went down, it wasn't there. And we got to where it was originally, and it was back again. And it was just floating there. And he was weirded out. He was like, what the hell is this thing? And he got really freaked out and really scared of it. And so we should, and I was like, well, let's go near it. Let's go and have a look at it properly now that somebody else is here. And he really got freaked out and said no, and told me we had to go home and stuff. But it was just floating there. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. If it was just me that saw it, I'd be like, well, maybe it was me losing my marbles or something. But the fact that he saw it as well, and he was absolutely shook. Neither of us knew exactly what it was or anything like that. We went back other times, it just wasn't there. So
I'm not going to posit any hypotheses, but I tell you, thank you for sharing that, because that is unexplained, and
yeah.
I think it's best left unexplained.
It felt
But
like it was alive, but it felt like it was lost.
do you sense a pulse, or like any type of like body movement, or like breath or brain activity, or
No, it just felt like it was love and it was alive, but it didn't pulse or anything like that. It felt like it didn't feel like it was a spirit, but it didn't feel like it was mortal. I'm not even sure exactly why it was, but like part of me thought it might have been like some sort of a portal or something like that, or I don't know, but it just felt like light, and I have no idea why it is.
wow, then I thank you tremendously for sharing that. Uh, it came to life in my head. I totally was able to see it all, so I thank you, and the birds agree. And Violet Ann has a YouTube channel. If anyone here would like to check that out, the link will be in the description of this video. So I hope you and everyone have a great day. Thank you, Violet Ann.
Okay, thank you.